They tried to break him. For 2,673 days, they tried. They beat his body. They starved his flesh. They silenced his voice. They buried him in the suffocating darkness of solitary confinement. They took his name, his rank, his connection to the world. They took everything that was on the outside, but they couldn't touch it. The one thing he discovered they had no jurisdiction over. The final, sacred, inviolable sanctuary. The space inside. This is not a story about war. It is not a story about a soldier. It's about a hidden battlefield, far more important than any fought on land or sea. It's about you. It's about the part of you that has never been captured, the part of you that is still free, and what's still untouched within you. His name was James Stockdale, Vice Admiral, fighter pilot. In 1965, his plane was shot down over North Vietnam. He ejected, breaking a leg, fracturing his back, and as he parachuted down toward an enemy village, he knew that his life as he knew it was over. He told himself two things in that moment. I am leaving the world of technology and entering the world of Epictetus, and 5 years here at least. He was wrong. It was 7.5 years. 7.5 years in the Hanoi Hilton, a name that dripped with dark irony. Years of methodical torture designed not just to extract information, but to do something far more sinister, to break a man's will, to disintegrate his identity, to colonize his mind and turn him into an instrument of propaganda. They put him in shackles, broke his bones, and left him in darkness. But the prison that should have broken his mind failed. It failed for a reason his captors could never understand. James Stockdale didn't learn to survive in prison. He was already prepared for it. Years before, he had discovered a universal principle. Through the words of a former slave named Epictetus, he had touched a spiritual law that would become his armor and his weapon. He understood his strength came not from a philosophy, but from a mental choice. The choice of how to respond to what life presented him. They could control his body, the pain, the environment, but there was one domain where his power was absolute and theirs was null. The domain of his judgments, his opinions, his interpretation of reality. They could chain his ankles, but they could not chain his awareness. They could command his body to bow, but they could not command his soul to surrender. He understood that freedom was not a place, it was a choice. The choice of how to respond to what life presented him. And here we arrive at the hidden truth behind Stockdale's story. The lesson that transcends war, time, and place. The real prison is not the room you're in, It is not the circumstances of your life. It is not your boss, your bank balance, your diagnosis, or your past. The real prison is the story you believe about what it all means. Suffering does not come from the event. Suffering comes from your judgment about the event. A century before Stockdale, another kind of scientist, a scientist of the spirit named Emmet Fox, mapped this same topography of the soul. He did not use the language of Stoic philosophy, but he arrived at the same monumental conclusion. Circumstances do not matter. What matters is your own thought about the circumstances. Emmet Fox. Let that truth permeate you. Circumstances do not matter. What a radical statement. What an affront to our entire programming. We were taught the opposite. We were taught to be slaves to conditions. They told us that happiness depends on what happens to us. They told us that suffering means something has gone wrong, that you are a victim. But what if that is the greatest lie of all? What if pain is not punishment, but simply information, a signal, a teacher? What if fear is not weakness, but simply energy, waiting to be directed? What if the lock was never on the door of your cell, but in your own mind? Stockdale survived because he understood this. He saw torture not as proof of his powerlessness, but as an opportunity to exercise his only real power, the power to choose his character, to not be defined by his tormentors. He changed the meaning, and in changing the meaning, he changed everything. The inner turn. From reactor to observer. You have been trained from birth to be a reaction machine. An external stimulus occurs, and an internal program runs automatically. Someone criticizes you, and the program of shame is triggered. You face a challenge, and the program of fear is activated. You live like a pinball, ricocheting from one event to the next, believing your reactions are you. But that is not you. It is your conditioning. Your true power lies in the space between the stimulus and your response. It is a pause, a millisecond, a sacred space. In that space, you cease to be the actor on the stage of drama and become the silent observer in the audience, the presence that witnesses. You see the thought of anger arise, but you are not the anger. You feel the wave of fear, but you are not the fear. You hear the old story of, "I'm not good enough," but you are not the story. You are the sky. The thoughts and emotions are the clouds. The clouds come and go. The sky remains, untouched, eternal. From this place of observation, you cease to be a slave to the event and become the master of the meaning. Stockdale survived not because he escaped pain. He survived because he chose what the pain would mean. This is inner authority. This is spiritual sovereignty. This is the true rebellion. Not screaming at the system, but becoming so internally free that the system becomes irrelevant.
I am not capable of changing my situation.
You don't need to be in a prison camp to be trapped.
Your cell can be a soul-draining job, a past trauma, or the relentless voice of your inner critic. The prison is any state where you believe your external circumstances have more power than your internal choice. Just as Stockdale chose to redefine his pain, you can rewrite your reality. What he did in a dark cell, you can do in the stillness of your room. This is not an exercise. It is a ritual of liberation. It's called Ignite Your Sanctuary, a 5-minute ritual to do every night for 7 days in a notebook. Step 1. Identify the system's voice. Identify a limiting thought that arose during your day. For example, I am not capable of changing my situation. Write it down. Step 2. Cancel the broadcast. Draw a line through the thought and declare, "This is the system's voice, not mine." You are revoking consent. Step 3. Write the new law. Write a new empowering truth in the present tense. If the thought was, "I am afraid to speak in public," the new law is, "I am courageous and my voice matters." Step 4. Anchor truth with action. Choose one small action for the next day that reinforces this new law. If your new truth is, "I am courageous," your action might be, "I will ask one question in the next meeting." Step 5. Declare your sovereignty. Close the notebook. Place your hand on it and declare with conviction, "I am the observer. My sanctuary is untouchable." This is how you break free. You don't fight the thought, you replace it. Emmet Fox called this the most practical and powerful act in spiritual life, the law of mental substitution. You withdraw your attention from the thought that imprisons you, and you deliberately place it on a thought that liberates you. You choose the thought. You choose the frequency. You choose again and again. Each time you do this, you weaken the walls of the old prison and build the foundations of a new reality.
So, the question you must ask yourself is not, "How do I escape my circumstances?" The question that changes everything is, "What am I empowering with my attention right now?" Are you empowering the story that you are a victim? Or are you empowering the truth that you are the observer? Are you feeding fear with your belief? Or are you feeding faith with your choice? They cannot take your mind unless you hand it over. They cannot steal your peace unless you forget who you truly are underneath all the noise. The story of James Stockdale is not about one man's remarkable endurance. It is a reminder of the limitless capacity that resides in us all, the ability to preside over our own inner kingdom regardless of the chaos that reigns outside. The untouchable sanctuary. Do not wait for the bars to disappear. Realize you have always held the key. The key is your own awareness. Remember and rise.
Remembrance is a practice. Freedom is a discipline. For those ready to go beyond inspiration and begin the work of rewriting the inner script, we've created Burn the Boats, a guide to defying the system, a deprogramming manual to transform your mind into an unshakable sanctuary. Download your free guide at yoursanctuary.net. Because the war was never out there, and freedom begins within. Your sanctuary awaits.